Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready to dive into something pretty fascinating?
Always.
Okay, great. So, we're going to be looking at,
The future of relationships.
yeah, human relationship.
Okay.
And we've got these two sources, Relaciones 2 and Relaciones Humanas.
Okay.
And they're both kind of pointing towards some pretty big changes in how we think about love and partnerships, like really different from the traditional ways we've been taught.
Yeah, it's really interesting how both of them suggest that, these old relationship models,
Right.
like they're just not working anymore. They're
Yeah.
leading to so much stress and conflict.
Exactly.
And, Relaciones 2 uses this phrase, uh, old attributes, rules, and regulations,
I love
which
how.
I think really sums it up, that feeling
Mhm.
of being stuck in these outdated,
Yeah.
like, ways of
And
relating.
it's like we're trying to use like an
Yeah.
old map
Yeah.
for brand new terrain.
Totally.
But okay, so one thing that really caught my eye was this whole concept of new energy
Oh,
relationships
yeah.
emerging, and they're supposed to be like completely free from,
Karma.
yeah, karmic
I
baggage.
know. It's a wild idea.
It's kind of, it
Right.
sounds amazing, but also, does
Yeah.
that even possible?
Well, it is a pretty radical concept. I
Yeah.
mean, Relaciones too is basically saying there's this future where relationships aren't about,
Right.
working through all that past life drama or like carrying over wounds from old relationships.
Yeah.
It's more about starting fresh,
Right.
like a clean slate,
Oh.
connecting from a place of pure,
Yeah.
conscious choice,
Ooh.
which is
And
healing.
they really emphasize that it's not about ignoring the past, but it's about like actively releasing it
Yes.
before you enter into a
Right.
new relationship.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like hitting the reset button
Yeah.
on all those repeating patterns that we always find
Just-
ourselves in.
It's like a clean break from all of that.
That is exciting and daunting at the same time.
It is both of those things for sure.
Yeah. So like how do we even begin to approach relationships in this way?
Well, both sources talk a lot
Yeah.
about how important personal growth is,
Right.
and sovereignty
Mm-hmm.
as the foundation for these new energy relationships.
Okay.
Relaciones Humanas actually recommends taking a sabbatical
Interesting.
from looking for outside validation
Oh.
and focusing instead on really cultivating
Self-love.
self-love. Yeah.
So it's not about finding someone to complete you.
No,
It's more about becoming whole
exactly.
on your own first.
Yeah. And that makes so much sense
It does.
because we've all felt that pressure
Oh, yeah.
to find a soulmate,
Right.
who's going to fix our problems and
Fill the void.
fill the void. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really work.
It rarely does.
Relaciones Humanas had this great analogy.
Oh, yeah.
They compared that longing for a soulmate to looking in a mirror and seeing a fragmented reflection.
Okay.
And the real work is in taking those pieces and integrating them within yourself first
I love that.
so that you can show up in relationships
Yeah.
as a whole,
Yeah.
integrated person.
That's a really powerful
Yeah,
image.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
And I think what it means is
Yeah.
maybe letting go of that whole soulmate myth.
Could actually lead to deeper,
Well,
more
okay.
fulfilling connections.
Could it be
Yeah.
that by releasing that need,
Uh-huh.
we actually make room for
Yeah.
something much more authentic and empowering?
So both sources are kind of pushing back on that whole soulmate idea.
They are.
But Relaciones Humanas also talks about how relationships just are inherently challenging.
Yes.
And that's not just romantic relationships, but all relationships. Like even with our family, with
Yeah.
our parents and siblings.
I thought that was really important too,
Yeah.
because it's true. It reminds us that relationships are just a part of life,
Yeah.
and they're going to require effort and understanding no matter what.
Always going to be bumps in the road.
Right. It doesn't matter how evolved we get.
Exactly.
There's still going to be challenges.
Okay, so we're letting go of the fairy tale,
Right.
acknowledging that it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? How should we be thinking about love and partnership moving forward?
Well, Relaciones Humanas really stresses the importance of building a strong relationship with yourself,
Okay,
first and foremost.
got it.
They say it's like building a solid foundation
Yeah.
for a house.
So before we even start thinking about a partner,
Right.
we have to do the work of understanding our own,
Yeah. Needs, desires,
Yeah.
values.
and that's where sovereignty comes in.
Exactly.
Okay,
Relaciones Humanas is all about developing that strong sense of self.
right.
So you're secure in who you are and what you want.
So what does a sovereign person look like in a relationship?
Well,
Can you give us an example?
sure. Think of someone who has really clear boundaries.
Okay.
who's really good at communicating their needs, and who doesn't depend on their partner to feel good about themselves.
Got it.
They're comfortable being alone, but they choose to be in the relationship because it brings them joy,
Yeah.
not because they feel like something's missing
Yeah.
without it.
It sounds like it takes a
Yeah.
lot of self-awareness
Yeah.
and maturity to
Definitely.
be in a truly sovereign relationship.
It's a challenge for sure.
And it's really pushing back on that traditional idea of relying on your partner
Yeah.
for everything.
Definitely. It's a shift.
It is.
Yeah, but Relaciones, too, suggests that when you prioritize individual sovereignty,
Yeah.
it creates space for a deeper, more fulfilling connection.
Okay.
They actually go so far as to say that partners in these new energy relationships might not even live together.
Whoa, hold on.
Oh.
No living together.
Yeah, they're really challenging that assumption
Okay.
that you have to live together
Right.
to have a committed relationship.
Yeah.
They're not saying it's bad,
Yeah.
but they want us to question
Yeah.
why.
Yeah.
Do we really need to?
Right.
Or is that just what we've been told?
So it's about conscious choice
Exactly.
instead of just following that traditional relationship
Yes,
script.
exactly.
I get it. It's like flipping the script on the fear of being alone.
Yes.
Maybe it's not about finding someone to complete us.
Right.
It's about sharing our life with someone because
Yes.
we want to.
Who enhances our already whole self.
Right. Not because we're afraid to be alone.
And that brings us back to that idea of
Energy.
new energy.
Yeah.
Where it's about being free from all of that pressure,
Yeah.
like societal expectations.
Right.
It's about connecting because of mutual respect, shared values,
Yeah.
a genuine desire to be together.
That is a pretty radical
Yes.
departure from what we're
It really is.
used to. It
Yeah.
makes you wonder if maybe we've been doing this whole love and partnership thing
All wrong?
wrong this whole time.
Maybe.
What if we've been looking for a soulmate to complete us?
Yeah. When we should have been focusing on becoming whole ourselves first.
What if?
That's the question
I think so.
that we're going to be exploring.
That's what we're going to explore in this deep dive.
Yeah.
We'll be looking at the practical implications of these new energy relationships and how we can start to cultivate that sense of sovereignty and self-love.
Wow. This is already blowing my mind.
There's a lot to unpack.
I can't wait to keep going.
Oh,
Stick with us, listeners, as we dive deeper into the future of human relationships.
so much more to uncover. Okay, so we've talked about how these sources want us to rethink relationships.
Yeah, like big time.
But how do we actually put these ideas into practice?
Right, like it's one thing to talk about sovereignty
Yeah,
and new energy,
yeah.
but how do we actually live it?
How do we go from soulmate searching to all this
Right.
self-love and new energy stuff?
It feels like a huge leap.
It is a big shift.
Yeah.
But both sources offer some really good guidance.
Okay.
Relaciones Humanas really emphasizes introspection,
Like really taking the time to understand yourself.
your patterns and your needs.
Yes, exactly. Like all of that. They actually use this analogy.
Oh, they love a good analogy.
They say you wouldn't build a house without a solid foundation.
Right.
So are they saying self-awareness is the foundation
Yeah,
for a good relationship?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, like we can't expect someone to fulfill us
Right.
if we don't even understand ourselves.
Makes me think of a saying,
What?
you can't pour from an empty cup.
Oh, yeah,
So true.
it is.
If we're always looking to our partner to fill us up.
You're going to be disappointed
Yeah, exactly.
every time.
Disappointed every time.
And Relaciones 2 talks about releasing
Oh, yeah.
that old energy
Mm-hmm.
before you get into a new relationship.
So like all the baggage.
Yes, all the baggage. And not just from romantic relationships,
Mm.
family stuff, societal expectations, anything that's holding you back.
So it's like hitting the reset button.
Yes, on your whole relationship history.
Wow, that sounds incredibly liberating.
It is,
And terrifying.
but also kind of scary.
Yeah. How do we actually do that, though? Release all that old energy.
Well, there are a lot of different ways to approach it,
Okay.
but both sources say conscious awareness is key.
Okay.
You have to see those patterns and those beliefs that aren't serving you anymore.
Right.
Once you see them clearly,
Yeah.
you can start to make different choices.
Okay, it sounds like a lot of inner work,
It is.
but I can see why that would be important.
Yeah, and it's not just about getting rid of the negative stuff. It's also about cultivating those positive qualities
Okay.
that you want to bring into a relationship.
Compassion and empathy.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so do the inner work, release the baggage, and cultivate those good qualities.
That's the foundation.
But what about like the practical stuff?
like day-to-day life.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
Relaciones too talked about questioning the need to live together.
Right.
What do they mean by that?
Well, they're basically saying that living together shouldn't automatically be a step in every committed relationship.
Oh, interesting.
It's not about saying it's bad.
Right.
It's about figuring out if it actually works for you.
For your needs and your desires.
Yeah. Like, do you really want to live with this person?
It's about choice.
Yes.
Not just doing what everyone expects.
Exactly.
So they're saying that sometimes having your own space can actually be good for the relationship.
Yeah, it allows you to have your own identity.
You know, when I first heard that, I thought it sounded kind of cold.
Yeah, I get that.
But the more I think about it,
What do you think now?
I think it could actually make the bond stronger
How so?
if you're choosing to be together.
Right.
Just because you genuinely want to,
Because you enjoy each other's company?
not because you feel obligated.
Right.
That changes everything.
It does. It's not about fear anymore.
Yeah.
It's about real connection.
So we're moving away from that transactional
Yeah.
relationship.
Where it's all about getting your needs met
Yeah.
and moving towards something more collaborative.
Creating something together.
Yeah, exactly.
It-
Something meaningful.
It sounds like trust and communication are super important.
They're essential.
Yeah.
And that's another big part of these new energy relationships.
Honesty and vulnerability.
Yes. Being able to be your true self with your partner.
So you're not hiding your flaws
No, you're embracing them.
and letting your partner see the real you.
Exactly. That's where true intimacy comes from.
Okay, so instead of trying to find a soulmate to fix us,
Yeah.
we're focusing on becoming whole ourselves.
Right.
Releasing all the baggage,
Huh.
cultivating those good qualities,
Yeah,
and creating a relationship based on choice, communication, and vulnerability.
exactly. It's a whole new way of looking at things.
It's a lot to take in,
It is.
but I'm starting to see how it could lead to more authentic relationships.
I think so too.
But it definitely requires a lot of inner work.
And a willingness to let go of those old beliefs.
Yeah. And to challenge those assumptions about love.
It's not easy.
It's not for the faint of heart.
Definitely not.
But Relaciones 2 brought up something really interesting.
What's that?
If we let go of this whole soulmate thing,
Uh-huh.
what happens to ideas like fidelity and commitment?
Yeah, they actually said that love could still exist,
Okay.
even if one partner finds someone else.
Wait, what? That's a lot to process.
It is.
It really challenges traditional monogamy.
It does.
So are they saying we should all have open relationships?
Not necessarily. They're just saying that love can exist beyond
Oh,
those traditional boundaries.
So like our feelings for someone don't have to disappear just
Right.
because they have feelings for someone else?
That's the idea.
That is a lot to unpack. It makes me rethink everything I thought I knew about love and commitment.
Me too. It's a big shift.
It is. But I'm also a little hesitant.
I
It
understand.
sounds great in theory,
But
but
what about in practice?
yeah, how do we actually navigate all this
Right.
without getting hurt?
Without feeling insecure?
Exactly.
Well, that's where sovereignty comes in. If you're secure in yourself,
Yeah.
you're less likely to feel threatened by your partners.
Changing feelings.
Changing feelings, yeah.
Okay, so it's about trusting yourself
And trusting your partner
and allowing space for change.
to grow and evolve.
Wow, it sounds like these new energy relationships.
What do you think?
They require so much
Yeah.
communication.
Open and honest,
Honesty.
vulnerability
Yeah, it's a constant process.
of evolution
Yeah.
and adaptation.
Okay, so we've talked about self-awareness, releasing old energy,
Yep.
cultivating good qualities,
Right?
conscious choice.
Yeah.
But how do we know if we're actually doing it right?
How do we know if we're moving towards these new energy relationships?
Yeah, what are the signs?
Well, one sign is a sense of freedom and ease.
Like it just flows.
Yeah, exactly. There's less pressure to conform,
Okay.
more space for individuality.
You're not trying to fit into some mold.
No, you're creating your own.
What else?
Another sign is mutual respect and appreciation.
So you're not trying to change each other.
No, you're accepting each other as you are.
Flaws and all.
Flaws and all.
Okay, I'm starting to get it.
Good.
But I think the biggest takeaway for me,
What's that?
these new energy relationships require so much inner work
Yes, they do.
and a willingness to really question everything you thought you knew about love.
To challenge your own beliefs.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely not easy.
No, it's not a walk in the park.
But the rewards could be huge.
I think so too.
Imagine a world where relationships are all about freedom and authenticity and choice.
That's the vision.
It's a beautiful vision,
It is.
but I do see some potential pitfalls.
Like that.
Like, how do we make sure we're not using this new energy stuff?
To avoid commitment.
Yeah, or responsibility.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, how do we know we're not just using it as an excuse?
Right, because sovereignty doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want
Right.
and ignore your partner's needs.
It's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between freedom and care.
And remember, Relaciones 2 was very clear.
Okay.
New energy does not mean tolerating abuse.
So how do we walk that line?
Between our needs and our partner's needs.
Yeah.
It comes down to communication,
Again.
being honest about what you want,
And having those tough conversations.
even when it's uncomfortable.
It sounds like a constant.
Negotiation,
Ugh.
compromise.
So much trust and understanding.
It takes work,
It does.
but I think it's the only way to create something
Seems
sustainable,
that's going to last.
long term.
This deep dive is really making me think.
It's a lot to process.
I see how these new energy concepts could change everything, but it's a journey.
It is.
It requires constant self-reflection.
You have to be willing to challenge yourself.
What's the one key takeaway you want listeners to remember?
Approach relationships with curiosity.
Okay.
Be open-minded.
Yeah.
Question your assumptions.
Don't be afraid to challenge the norms.
And explore new ways of connecting.
Great advice.
I hope it helps.
And listeners, remember, this is just the beginning.
Yeah, there's so much more to discover.
When it comes to the future of relationships,
This is just a starting point.
yeah, we've just scratched the surface.
Exactly.
So keep diving deep.
Questioning.
Keep evolving.
Yeah.
And remember, the future of love is in our hands.
It's up to us to create the relationships we want. You know, all this talk about new relationship models, it makes me think about how much fear drives the way we relate to each other right now.
Fear. Can you explain what you mean?
Well, think about it. A lot of our relationship anxiety,
Okay.
it comes from being afraid, right?
What I'm afraid of.
Like the fear of ending up alone, a
Right.
fear of rejection, not being good enough.
Uh-huh.
I even think that whole soulmate thing,
Yeah.
it can be driven by fear too.
Really?
Like we're afraid of being incomplete.
Hmm.
So we're looking for someone to make us whole.
That's interesting. I never thought about it that way before.
It's like we're always trying to protect ourselves from all these things we're afraid of.
Yeah.
And I think that can really mess up our relationships.
It makes sense.
And what's so interesting is that both these sources,
Relaciones too? And?
yeah, Relaciones 2 and Relaciones Humanas,
Okay.
they're both saying that maybe the answer isn't less freedom,
Less.
but actually more.
More freedom. Wouldn't that just make us more afraid?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But they're saying that when we embrace sovereignty, set boundaries, and love ourselves,
Okay.
it creates a different kind of security.
One that comes from within.
Exactly. It's not about needing someone else to approve of us or tell us we're worthy.
We already know our worth.
Exactly.
So then we're not threatened by the little things.
Like when our partner wants space,
or disagrees with us.
we could be more understanding
Approach the relationship from a place of trust.
instead of fear and control.
It makes so much sense.
And I think that's when real connection becomes possible.
We're not clinging to each other because we're afraid.
Right.
We're choosing to be together because it feels good.
It brings us joy, helps us grow, and supports who we are.
It sounds like maybe these new models,
What do you think?
it's like a more courageous way to love.
How so?
It takes courage to trust, to be vulnerable, to
Love.
embrace the unknown.
To let go of control.
Exactly. What if the future of love isn't about finding that one perfect person?
Or following all the rules.
Yeah.
Maybe it's about creating relationships where everyone can be themselves.
And grow and change as they need to.
That's a beautiful vision.
Yeah.
But I also think it's a big ask.
Why?
We're so used to the fairy tales,
Yeah.
the happily ever afters.
We've been conditioned to think that way.
So how do we unlearn all that?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
How do we embrace a more realistic view of love?
One that's still hopeful.
Yeah.
I think conversations like this are a good start.
Just talking about it,
Questioning those old assumptions.
sharing our experiences.
Maybe we can create a new way of thinking about relationships. The new dialogue?
And maybe that dialogue will lead to a better way of loving,
A more conscious way.
more compassion.
More fulfilling.
That's what I'm hoping for.
I love that. So listeners, let's keep this conversation going.
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Do these new relationship models resonate with you?
What challenges do you see?
What excites you about it?
We'd love to hear from you.
Well, that's it for our deep dive into the future of human relationships.
I hope you enjoyed it
I hope it gave you something to think about.
and maybe even inspired you to approach your own relationships with more curiosity and courage.
Remember, there's no right way to love.
The important thing is to find what feels true for you.
So keep exploring, keep evolving.
and keep choosing love on your own terms.
Until next time, happy diving.